Back to the fifth and final set of power rankings that I am doing for this MLP season. We have the much requested, definitely sought after Elementary rankings for today. I completely forgot how to English there for a second, bear with me. Yes, Elementary, which is our newest division. But yeah, we're going to crack right on with it. So first up, we're going to start with Alec, and we've got Mega Diancie, Lando T, Rotom Wash, Latias, Shaman, Porygon 2, Entei, Conkeldurr, Steelix, and Avalok. Interesting team right off the bat. Mega Diancie Lando was quite a nice first two mons to pick up. Looking at it, Avalok is a good one. I'm not sure how needed it is with this team, considering just looking at it, it's a very bulky team. But it's nonetheless, it's not a bad pickup. Steelix as your steel type is, I think it works here. I'm not as huge of a fan of it with Lando, but I do understand the reasoning. I don't think a second ground with Lando is nearly as necessary as it was in Gen 7, when you pretty much had to get a second ground if you wanted the chance at running Lando offensively. But yeah, so let's look at the speed tiers to start off, shall we? Got our column here. First thing that strikes me is it's a pretty slow team. You have Mega Diancie and Latias is really your only speed control, and one of those can't be scarfed. And Laddie is not a huge fan of being scarfed. Scarf Entei, Scarf Lando are pretty good scarfers. But still, I think speed tiers are probably going to be where Alec struggles a little bit, if we're being honest. Like, looking at his opponent's probably not the best example here, but say something like a Weavile. Weavile creeps, like you have to scarf something to really compete with Weavile there. But it's a bit slow. Not my favorite speed tiers, considering there's not a super obvious scarfer, because Lando doesn't want to be forced into that role every week. Looking at our breakers, we have very nice physical breakers here. We've got the Conkeldurr, we've got the Entei, we've got the Lando, we've got the Mega Diancie, which can be mixed. So that's really nice physical coverage there. Looking at our special attackers, though, it's really Laddie and Mega Diancie that are going to be doing it. Rotom, yes. P2, yes. But those two are 9 out of 10 times running defensive sets. Speaking of which, this team is very bulky. For me personally, it's a little bit too bulky. Like, you've got Rotom, Shaman, Porygon, Steelix, Avalug. You got 5 out of the 10 mons that we've drafted here are looking to be bulky, and then Lando, as sort of an Intimidate pivot, as one of its best sets, is another bulkier set. So it's really going to be put hard onto the likes of Mega Diancie, Laddie, Conk, and Entei, to really nail home the kills this season for Alec. And I feel like that's not the greatest. One thing I will say is this team is a little bit knock weak, considering that your knockoff resist is Mega Diancie. And something that I just noted: people need to learn to draft dark types. A Psychic can just sit in front of this team. You don't have a dark type, you don't have a ghost type. Psychics, a bulky Psychic, like play Mew week 1. Like a bulky Psychic like Mew, Reuniclus, even Musharna. There's a whole bunch that I can't think of at the moment. They can, even offensive Psychics, like they click if they have coverage for Laddie, and yeah, if they've got coverage for Steelix, but even Steelix Spadef is 65, 75 in HP and Spadef. Like, it doesn't like taking a strong Psychic. So yeah, Psychic types are a huge problem for this team. Dark is one of the most important types to draft, and if you're not going to draft a Dark type, you need to draft a strong Ghost type or a really strong Bug type, and we haven't got either of those. The other thing I see is there's no grounded poison on this team. So T-Spikes, against what we've already said is a pretty bulky team, is going to be a bit of a problem. So moving into talking about hazards, our rockers are pretty decent from the looks of things. We've got Mega Diancie, Lando, and Steelix. Actually, they're not as strong as I would have liked. Considering Diancie running rocks is something you really don't want to do. Lando running rocks is, yeah, it can do, but it suffers from 4 move slot syndrome a lot. So you're probably going to have to bring Steelix more than you would like to these games. Removal, though, is one thing why I questioned this Avalog pick is because we already have a really bulky team, and our removal is already really good. Like, we have Conkeldurr, we have Laddie, Rotom, and Lando there, and so now Avalog is sort of like, it's a bit overkill there. But yeah, on paper, I really liked sort of the top 4 picks to this draft. Around 4 Latias is probably a little bit early. That mon doesn't get as much love now that Z isn't around. But yeah, I'm gonna, just due to the lack of another special breaker, the real, like, the knockoff resist as well. Like, yes, you've got Conk, but Conk loves its item, so it's a bit knock weak and it's super psychic weak. So yeah, for that reason, I'm gonna give this team a 5 out of 10. Just because it's. Oh, one last thing we forgot to talk about is the pivoting on this team. Your pivots are Rotom and Lando, and that's it. Yes, P2 can run teleport, but when do you ever have the move slots for that? Because for P2, you generally want, like, you want your recover, you want your status move, like, mostly toxic, and then you generally want, like, it's generally hard to fit teleport on there as well, because then it leaves you with only 1 attacking move, and it's very hard to find one that fits. So yeah, with only 2 real, I think 5 out of 10 is a pretty fair score for that one. So we've got Arcadian with the Garchomp, Mega Mawile, Slowking, Gengar, Galarian, Zapdos, Incineroar, Serena, Rotom, Frost, Porygon Z, and Regirock. Already, I really like the looks of this team. Without looking too much into the synergies here, we have Mega Mawile, we have a strong grass type to go with it, which is a nice ground resist. We have a Levitator, we have a flying type, we've got Trick Room Teleport to go with it. Gengar, round 4 Gengar is super strong. Like, I'm not sure how this team was allowed to get Gengar, and then Galarian Zapdos that late. Like, these 2 picks here, round 4 and 5, are obscene value for someone who's already got Garchomp, Mega Mawile. And also, can we talk about Mega Mawile round 2? Like, guys, what were you doing in this division? Like, come on. So looking at this, let's look a little bit more in depth. Let's start with our speed tiers. Now, our speed tiers aren't the greatest here. Gengar is our really only our speed control. But we do have, as I've talked about, I think in yesterday or the day before, I can't remember when the last one was uploaded, I personally think Galarian Zapdos is one of the best Scarfers in the game, because we get access to 2 really good stabs that complement each other. There isn't really, I can't think off the top of my head of a mon that resists both of those stabs. It'd have to be like a rock ghost type or something weird. But yeah, it's phenomenal offensive coverage. It gets access to U-turn, and it also gets access to its signature move, Thunderous Kick, which means that even if you click that against something that comes in to resist it, it's then dropped its defense, so it's effectively taking a neutral hit straight after, which means against some teams, say, for example, Whimsicott. Whimsicott's a resist here. It doesn't have the best defense. I don't know the calcs off the top of my head. But taking and yes, it's weak to flying, but say we kick Thunderous Kick and our opponent gets the prediction right. One of those into taking another one at -1, that Whimsicott's going to take a decent chunk, so it's very easy to chip things in range of Zapdos. I also think that we've got Porygon Z is a really good Scarfer. Scarf PZ, Agility PZ, and then you've got Scale Shot Chomp. So it's not the... Like, let's be honest, the speed tiers are pretty bad, but we also have the Trick Room option. We have Trick Room Teleport from Slowking into Mawile, or low-key Regirock. The base 100 attack, you can run Adamant, you can click Stone Edge, get some really nice offensive moves. But yeah, that's probably the biggest downside with this team, is we probably need something a bit quicker. Looking at our breakers here, our breaking power physically is phenomenal. Serena, Incineroar, Galarian Zapdos, Mega Mawile, Garchomp. They're all hit very hard. Especially, it's decent, but it's not quite as good. It's pretty reliant on Gengar and Porygon Z, although those two do a really good job of it between the two of them, and Normal and Ghost kind of cover a lot of each other's weaknesses, as well as Porygon getting absurd coverage moves. So that's not too bad. Looking at defensively, we obviously have like the Regirock, the Rotom, Incineroar, and Serena are two really good defensive pivots. Slowking with access to Regenerator, and then of course Mawile takes physical hits fairly well. Oh, and Regirock with 200 HP. We have Spadef side, Slowking obviously fantastic. Serena and Incineroar are good. Again, really nice pivots, not necessarily Spadefals. And then Regirock and Rotom do a really nice job. In terms of hazards, we have Chomp, Mawile, and Regirock for rockers. It's a little bit light, but I can understand it. Regirock's probably, like, Mawile actually runs rocks a lot better than most people think. Garchomp, not so much. Like, Rocks Garchomp is not something that we want to be running, like, at all. So it's really Mawile and Regirock, which makes sense why we have that Regirock pick at the end there over something that maybe fit our speed tiers a little bit nicer. Looking at our removal options, they're a little bit light, and by light I mean almost non-existent, because we have Serena and Rotom Frost are our only removers. I don't mind that as much because we only have two Rock Week Mons, and both of them don't mind running boots, and then one of them in Rotom Frost probably isn't coming to a whole lot of games. So yeah, it's not the worst. Pivoting is one thing where this team's really strong. You've got Slowking, you've got Galarian Zapdos, you've got Incineroar, Serena, Rotom Frost. That's 5 pivots out of the 10 Mons we've drafted here. Really, really good. As I said, although this team doesn't have the greatest speed tiers and doesn't have the greatest hazard control, I'm actually going to give this an 8.5 out of 10, just due to the synergies here. Because we have some great ground resists, we have some great fire resists for Mawile. We have the abilities to get Mawile and Garchomp in very nicely, and we have some special breakers like Gengar and Porygon Z to really support them and force our opponents to run not only defensive Mons to try and check these, but also Spadef Mons. So we're going to move on. We're going to go to Azurine. I think I said that right. I am terrible with names. Azurine has the Zamazenta, Clefable, Kyurem, Cinderace, Rotom, Mow, Mantine, Lycanroc, Dusk, Mesprit, Sandslash, and Mega Gyarados. So interesting team right here. First things first that I see is Mantine. I am really not a fan of. I don't think it's a very good mon in singles at all. Outside of that, I see a round 5 Rotom Cut, which is a little bit interesting. That's a bit early for me, especially when you got round 7 Lycanroc Dusk. But outside that, the mons themselves individually work nice together. Speed tiers are one of these things that I think this team's going to excel at. We have Lycanroc, we have Cinderace, and we have Zamazenta, all 110 or over. Really nice. Then we go down to 95 for Kyurem, so it sort of steps its way down. We have Mega Gyarados, which can quite easily boost its speed. So I think our speed tiers are quite nice here. Looking at our special breakers, it's kind of only Kyurem. And when I say it's kind of only Kyurem, it is only Kyurem, because you've got Rotom and you've got Mesprit. Mesprit really needs to set up. It doesn't have the greatest speed tier to be a breaker. Rotom can do it a little bit more, like offensive Rotom Mow is a pretty nice set. But yeah, we've got Kyurem, and then it's like setting up Clefable, setting up with Mesprit, which is probably going to be wanting to run defensive more times than not. So our special options are pretty lacking, but our physical options are not. Like, we have the only mons that can't attack physically are Mantine, Rotom, and Clefable. So we've got Zamazenta, hits very hard. Kyurem can be mixed. Cinderace hits hard. Lycanroc Dusk hits incredibly hard with Tough Claws. And then we've got Mega Gyarados, which hits like a truck. So we've got some great breakers, but we don't really hit those important, hit that special side. One thing I will say, now before I forget, is this team doesn't have a grounded poison, and it doesn't have a normal type. Two very important types, I think, especially since Dark type here requires to Mega Evolve. So that means that, say, we just saw a Gengar team, or we've got a Dragapult team, or that, if turn 1 your opponent leads and clicks Scarf Shadow Ball, or Scarf, or like Specs Shadow Ball, or like Choice Band, what's a Shadow Claw, or whatever a good physical ghost move is, like slipping my mind at the moment. Your resist to that is kind of non-existent. Like, it's actually non-existent, because if Gyarados isn't Mega'd, then that's a big problem. The same thing for Psychics. Like, you have to go into Mesprit, and if they click Shadow Ball, and then they can spam Psychic type moves if you don't have Gyarados Mega'd. So I think that's one thing to say. Also funny, I just noticed Dauntless Shield is misspelled. That's kind of funny. Also, no grounded poison means that you're going to be taking a bit more chip. Like, Gyarados, if it's already Mega'd, comes in when there's T-Spikes. It can't really be that bulky setup mon that it wants to, because it's taking Poison Chip, Lycanroc Dusk, Kyurem Cinderace, all these mons that like to come in and out pretty often. The Toxic Spikes can really hurt this team. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our hazard control now that we've led into that. Our rockers are Clefable, Lycanroc, Mesprit, and Sandslash. 4 fine rockers, in my opinion. That's a good amount. I really like those because it's quite diverse, and you're probably going to bring 2 of those 4 every week. I find it like there is no scenario where those are the 4 mons events, especially when there's a Mantine on the roster. Like, this mon, honestly, you could just, like, I could delete this and it wouldn't really change my opinion on the team. Our removal is Rotom, Mantine, and Sandslash. Like, seeing that the removal's that light makes me understand why he's drafted Mantine, but this just isn't a Pokemon. Like, let's be honest. So yeah, maybe I'd be looking to, if I was to improve this team, I'd be looking to drop Mantine, and maybe change Megas, because I'm not sure Mega Gyarados is the best fit for this team, considering, like, you probably want a special attacking Mega, or like drop Mantine for like a water that hits specially, get some removal on one of those 2, and try and get a normal type, because you've got 2 waters, and considering Mega Gyarados is your Mega, and it's also your only way to deal with Psychic types or Ghost types, that's probably going to be coming to 7 out of 8 games at least. I just don't see the niche where Mantine comes at all, when you've already got a Gyarados on the team. So yeah, looking at our removal being that light as well, it just adds to our T-Spikes problem, which is a real shame, because these 4, I think, work really well together. Throw in a Lycanroc Dusk in there, and you've got some really good stuff. In terms of pivots, we have Clef with Teleport, we got Cinderace, Rotom, and Mesprit, so that's a decent amount. It's good, not great, is what I'll say. But yeah, so looking at this team, I'm going to give this a 6.5 out of 10. Just because you drafted a pointless mon in Mantine, you don't have any T-Spike absorbers, and you don't really have a Ghost answer. So we've got Cheesy and the Jersey Slowkings. Cheesy has Galarian Slowking, Megalop, Rillaboom, Zygarde, 50%, Infernape, Whimsicott, Empoleon, Regieleki, Crobat, Mudkip, and Sceptile. Can I just address the whole of Elementary? The fact that you guys let Rillaboom go to round 3, when that is a round 1, early round 2 mon at the best. Like, that's just something ridiculous. And I want to actually... I don't normally do this. We're going to this tab, and we're going to see Rillaboom here is pick 6. So that means we had 16, 32. That was the 38th Mon drafted, which that's slightly ridiculous. Cheesy got it, and that's makes this team 10 times harder for anyone to prep against. I honestly don't know what's going on there. That's a bit of a rant. But we've got the Galarian Slowking round 1. I assume that was just a mascot pick. Please don't tell me you think that's an actual round 1 Mon. A little bit of me might die inside if you do. We have Megalop, really good Mon. Coming down, we got Whimsicott, which is not a Pokemon. When that's your fairy, that's a bit of a stretch, and I'm not a fan. Regieleki is... You have one of the best ways to beat ground types, so I can kind of understand, but I still think this is a really one-dimensional Mon. It either sets screens, or it clicks electric moves, or rapid spin, like that's it. Mudkip, as I'm guessing, is a 1-point meme pick, and Sceptile, I'm guessing this, or maybe it's like a terrain abuser for Rillaboom, but that doesn't make much sense to me. Literally any other Unburdened Mon would have been better here, because you already have 2 grass types. Yeah, so just off the bat, this team looks phenomenal. Looking at our speed tiers, like this is probably the best speed tiers I've seen in all 5 leagues. You have Megalop, you have Infernape, you have Regieleki, you have Crobat, and you have Sceptile. Sceptile with the ability to go Unburdened. Whimsicott with Prankster Tailwind. Rillaboom is a really good, like, it has priority. Glide, which hits like a truck. It's just, yeah, these speed tiers you're not gonna beat. In terms of physical breakers, you have Megalop, Rillaboom, you got Zygarde, Infernape, and even Crobat can hit kind of hard. So you do force physically defensive Mons. On the special side, it's kind of Galarian Slowking and Infernape, so I would have gone, well, and Regieleki, but as I said, like, you don't need to, when you're playing against Regieleki, you don't need to have a Spadef Mon to take hits, you just need to have a ground type. So maybe one more special attacker on this team, and I would have enjoyed that a bit more. Looking at our hazard game, it is Infernape and Empoleon to set rocks. That's, when I said any other Mon for Sceptile, please pick up a rocker, because Empoleon doesn't want to be running rocks every week, and Infernape isn't the greatest. Removal-wise, we have Whimsicott, Empoleon, Regieleki, Crobat. So that's good enough. 4 removers. You'll be able to run some Defog most weeks. Yeah, so looking at this team, like this team's hard for me because it looks really good on paper, like at first glance, because there's around 3 Rillaboom, round 4 Zygarde, round 5 Infernape, like and then you've got like round 9 Crobat. Like, these are all ridiculous. But I don't think it's quite as strong as Arcadian's team. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. Just because I don't think, like, yes, Zygarde with the Rillaboom. Actually, no, this is bonkers strong. Yeah, no, this is actually, this is a 9 out of 10. I decided, like, if these 2 Mons were changed for something like a rocker, or actually, no, this team has no dark type. So it's losing half a point for that. So it's an 8.5 out of 10. If you drop these 2 Mons here for a rocker and a dark type, this is almost a 10 out of 10 team, in my opinion. I'm not sure if there's a special attacker that knows rocks and is dark type. There probably isn't. But yeah, that's how you improve this team, if at all. So next we've got Chris, and he's got the Drive-By Drafters. He's got a team of Shiftforce, Lando, Zera, Ferrothorn, Spectria, Sylveon, Blastoise, Obstagoon, Mega Pidgeot, and Uxie. Already, there's no Mon on this team that I don't like. Blastoise I'm not a huge fan of, but I can understand its fit here. It's nice to have a spinner when you've got Ferrothorn that can set spikes and rocks and all that shitters. Speed tiers, like, again, phenomenal. You got Spectria, you've got Zeraora, and you got Mega Pidgeot as fast Mons. Lando at 101 is a nice speed tier to have, and then Obstagoon at 95 is good. Yeah, Uxie's there, but it's not needed. really good speed tiers, really good special attacking options. Mega Pidgeot, Sylveon, Spectria, and Sheer Force Lando. Like that hits hard. And you've also got Zeraora. Like these top two can go mixed, so I'm not really going to count those in there. But with all that, really our physical breaker is kind of Obstagoon or Zera, but Zera more likes to be cleaner or like set up with a bulk up or a calm mindset. I would have really loved to see another physical breaker here instead of maybe one of your 30,000 special ones. But nonetheless, like if that's the biggest problem with your draft, then your draft is really good. In terms of defensive utility, like you've got the Ferrothorn, you've got the Blastoise, Obstagoon, Uxie, some really nice, like even Sylveon here can take physical hits just because Fairy's really good taking physical hits. Then especially like Blastoise, Sylveon, Pharaoh, Uxie, like really nice. Pivots, this team also has a few of those. It has Lando, Zera, Blastoise, Mega Pidgeot, and Uxie. 5 out of your 9 drafted Mon. Also Obstagoon, sorry, I almost forgot that it gets Parting Shot. So there's only 3 Mons here that can't pivot. And that's Ferrothorn, Spectria, and Sylveon. And Sylveon can kind of pivot because it can throw up a Wish and then like hard switch into something which sort of negates it, but I also think Wish is the most overrated move in Draft League, so yeah. When you draft a team like this, when you draft only 9 Mons, you're going to be missing out on some typings, especially when you double up on flying and you double up on normal. So for that reason, I really think a different Mega would have suited this team. You don't have a Poison type, you don't have Fighting type, you don't have a Dragon type. All 3 of those I think are quite important. Poison for ground like T-Spikes, although in saying that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of your Mons aren't affected by T-Spikes, so that kind of mitigates the issue there. So I probably won't mark you down for not having a Poison when half of your team doesn't get affected by T-Spikes. But no Fighting, I think, is like makes breaking steals very reliant on Lando. Which is not something I love relying heavily on my round 1 pick. And no Dragon makes your like Scald switch-ins. Yes, you have Pharaoh Blastoise, but I personally like having a Dragon for the defensive utility. It also means that Sylveon's going to be pressured to break Dragons more often than not, which I think is a little bit harder to put on Sylveon when you've got some really good bulky Dragons, so you'll need to be running some special attack, which takes away from Sylveon's defensive utility. But yeah, so probably no Dragon and no Fighting type. A little bit there. Like our defensive utility is really good. Our Rockers, that's the next thing. We got Lando, we got Ferrothorn, we've got Uxie. As I said, there's no way in the world that all 3 Mons are the 3 that you bench. So it's decent Rockers. Lando doesn't love running it, but then you've got 2 really reliable Rockers. So it sort of balances out. Our removal is Lando, Blastoise, Pidgeot. Again, it's Pidgeot and Lando don't love doing it, so this is probably not the best. For that reason, I'm going to give this team a 7.5 out of 10. I think the Mons itself are really good. I just think there's a few holes that this team has, like lack of a physical attacker, lack of probably another remover, and then lack of like a dragon or a fighting type. So yeah, it's not the worst. We've got Darth Yoshi and the Tactical Throwers here. And we have the team of Deoxys Speed, Hydreigon, Melmetal, Swampert, Superior, Mega Heracross, Comfy, Dragalge, Miltank, Porygon, and Blacephalon. First thing I see, Comfy is not a Pokemon. Especially, one thing that someone pointed out to me the other day is that I bashed on Comfy a little bit on the Urshifu team, which Comfy is a really good bait for steel types on that team because Urshifu can destroy them. It kind of, like, I can kind of see the same thing here with Mega Hera, but not as much because it's not as reliable of a breaker in terms of getting it in and reliably killing things or, like, pivoting out and not losing momentum. So it's here and there. So I really don't like Comfy. The fact that Miltank lasted till round 9 is astonishing to me. Why you took Superior round 5, like this is way too early for a mon that I don't think is very good anymore. It's not very strong because steel types come in on it for free, and outside of Mega Heracross, you don't break steel types. Like actually, just looking at this, you're relying on coverage from like Hydra or Deoxys to break it. Or actually, wait, there's a Blacephalon. I didn't see Blacephalon there, but it's yeah. I'm not a huge fan of Serp because it's only moves. It gets offensively a Grass type and Dragon type, so not the best. I'm a huge fan of Miltank, and I think Porygon's one of the best one-pointers. So you like did something right there. Yeah, looking at this team, we've also haven't drafted a flying type, which I find interesting since flying is one of the best offensive types in the game, and we are kind of ground weak on this team. Like we look at it, we have 1, 2, 3 weaknesses, and we only have these 2 to resist it. And yeah, you got Hydra, but like when you play Zygarde, that doesn't count. And considering Superior is not a very good mon, and I think it was drafted way too early, it's probably not going to be coming. So you're going to be forced to switch Mega Heracross in a lot on ground types, which I don't think is the greatest. Like, it's... Yeah, I think a flying type would have really been nice here. Let's look at our speed tiers before I get carried away. We have Deoxys speed, very fast. Superior, great speed tier. And Blacephalon is pretty good speed tier. Hydreigon, and then it kind of drops off, but that's fine. These speed tiers are passable. I don't think they're most amazing, but they're pretty good. Our offensive on the physical side, we have we kind of have Melmetal and Heracross, which hit really hard. Like Blacephalon can be mixed, and Hydra can be mixed. Special attackers, though, we have Blacephalon and we have Hydreigon. So we kind of only have... Oh, and Dragouge. So yeah, we have pretty good splits here. Defensively, again, it's pretty good. We got the Melmetal, we've got the Mega Heracross, we got the Miltank. Then you got the likes of like Comfy, Swampert, and all that sort of stuff that can take hits. Again, same specially, like Dragouge, Comfy, Mega Heracross. So it does it well. Looking at our rocks options, we have Swampert and Miltank. So we only have 2 rockers. That's... I don't like that. I'm really not a fan of only having 2 stealth rockers. Yes, you have hazards on Deoxys, but I'm not going to count those because, honestly, there shouldn't be a round 1 mon that's running rocks every week because that's a waste of a pick. Looking at our removal, we've got Hydra, we've got Superior, we've got Comfy. 3 removers that can probably afford to run it. Superior and Comfy I don't think are great mons, and then Hydra really doesn't want to run it, so it's not the most reliable removal. Yeah, so sorry, my recording cut out for a bit there. Hopefully these have been merged together without too much of a delay. So yeah, as I was saying, I don't know, round 3 Melmetal I find interesting considering it's... Your way of breaking bulky ground types on this team is Superior, and Superior is very exploitable. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this team, personally. Let's look at its pivots. That might change my mind. We've got Hydreigon, we've got Swampert, and we've got Comfy, and we've got Dragouge. They're not bad. It's passable. It's not amazing, considering you want to be getting Mega Heracross and Melmetal in to do a lot of your breaking work. But it's passable. I think this team is pretty standard at like I gave it, sorry, let's come back here. I gave this team a 6.5. I think this is a 7 out of 10. It's just kind of bog standard. It's not amazing, but not terrible. So we've got Enola. I'm not sure how you say that. Enola. That's what we're going to go with. And the Sanguines. Jeez. That's not an easy name for me. We're gonna skip that. We're gonna go. It's a Mega Sizzle, Zapdos, Nidoqueen, Dracovish, Pelipper, Barrascuda, Volcarona, Celebi, Skuntank, and Alchemy team. It's clearly a rain team, and I think it does that job pretty decent. Alchemy getting drafted is a shock to me. It's a defensive fairy that can't run Toxic. Its coverage is very limited. Its defensive stat is quite limited. So I don't think it's a great pickup. There are plenty of low tier fairies that do its job better. Something like a Granbull does it really well. And there's a few other at the top of my head I can't think of. Skuntank as a dark and a grounded poison does a decent job. But considering you had Nidoqueen, I feel like doubling up on your poison typing when your ground resist is kind of Zapdos, Pelipper, and then Celebi. So it's like you have a decent ground resist, but it's an unnecessary double up on typing. Like, I feel like these two could have been a different dark and a different fairy. But yeah, it's interesting. Also, looking at this team, we have the rest of the mons are quite fine. It does seem to be pretty heavy rain gear. Like when we draft 10 mons, and 3 of them are kind of rain, work around rain. So it's kind of, if you have very good rain answers on your team, it's a little bit predictable as to what's coming, but I think that's probably just fine. Speed tiers. First of all, if we look at speed tiers here, they're not great. Barrascuda is your sole speed control, and considering it's your rain sweeper as well, that's not great. Yes, Scarf Dracovish is an option, but Dracovish is a very easy mon to play around unless you have no answers for it, in my opinion. So it's not the strongest. We also have Triple Water, which isn't uncommon for a whatchamacallit, for a rain team. Looking at our offensive distribution, we have Zapdos and we have Volcarona as our special attackers here. It's alright. It's not the best, but it's not the worst. Nidoqueen can hit kind of hard. Celebi again can set up a nasty plot. Physically, we have Mega Sizzle, we have Barrascuda. Dracovish, yeah, counts because it clicks the Vicious Ren button, but it does kind of only have one move that it clicks, where it hits hard at all. So yeah, I would have loved to see maybe another breaker on this team. In terms of defensive utility, like this team, it's very defensive, I find, for a rain team. Like you got Sizzle, you got Zapdos, you got Nidoqueen, you got Pelipper, Celebi can be really good defensive. Skuntank and Alchemy are more like bulky mons than offensive. So, and then like Spadef, you've got again like Volcarona here. Mega Sizzle, Zapdos. So it's, yeah. Zapdos Rain is like really good because 100% accurate Hurricanes. But yeah, it's interesting. Looking at its Stealth Rock options, it is Nidoqueen and Celebi, so that's pretty light. And for mons like Barrascuda and Dracovish, you want to be setting hazards for them just to get that extra chip, make switch-ins a lot harder. Like, for example, looking at this team, let's just take a look at our opponent here. Like, he's got a Tangrowth. Dracovish probably gets checked fairly comfortably by Tangrowth, but with rocks up, that Tangrowth is taking more and more chip. Yes, it does have regen, but we're just going to... You get my point. It makes it a lot easier to chip mons down. So yeah, looking at our removal's pretty decent. We have Mega Sizzle, Zapdos, Pelipper, Volcarona, and Skuntank. Another reason that Skuntank is completely pointless on this team. Get a different dark type. I think I would prefer, because these mons here just seem so like not really like amazing. I'd almost prefer to see like a really strong dark type used with their points. Like, yes, you probably should pick up a Granbull and then get a different dark type with your points, or even just like any low tier fairy that does this job a little bit better. So yeah, it's an interesting team. Its hazard game isn't very strong, setting hazards, that is. It also doesn't have a fighting type or a ghost type, two very great offensive types. Doesn't have a normal type either. So it has the same problem, like considering your Skunk Tank has 61 SPDF, and that's your only ghost resist on the roster, that Dragapult team is licking its lips. The Spectria team is like frothing over this matchup. It's very interesting. No fighting type means breaking steals is down to your Nido Queen and your Volcarona. But Volcarona doesn't really want to be clicking too many fire moves in the rain, so like it's I'm gonna give this team a 6.5 out of 10. It doesn't have the strongest hazard game. It doesn't have the strongest hazard game. Doesn't have the greatest way to break steel types. It's missing a couple of important types. So it's, yeah, but it can, like as I say, it can do work, and I wouldn't be surprised if it did. We've got Frozen up next with the Adelaide Thunderbolts, Megazard X Coco, Mandibuzz, Tangrowth, Alakazam, Gligar, Cobalion, Florges, Tornadus, Tentacruel, and Pinsir. If you asked me, like if you showed me this team, without any context, I'd tell you this is a Gen 7 team. Megazard Coco was a really popular back wheel in Gen 7. In Gen 8, I'm Coco Zard X round 1, I'm not as big of a fan of. Also, Florges, really good Gen 7 mon. Gen 8, it's kind of eh. So, yeah, it's Cobalion is your steal. That's another thing that I don't really like, considering you're missing, like, your Psychic Resist, yes, you have Mandibuzz, but your Flying Resist is now solely on Coco, which is not great. The Taunt team is probably, again, salivating at this thought. So yeah, it's a bit interesting. Let's look at our speed tiers here. I have a feeling they're going to be good, and they are, because there's Tornadus here, there's Cobalion, there's Alakazam, there's Coco, and then Zard is really good at boosting its speed. Yeah, it's interesting, which sort of makes me feel like Cobalion's not really needed here, because you already have this great speed tier, these great speed tiers. Looking at our physical attackers, we have Pinsir. It sort of counts. And we have Zard, and we have Coco can go mixed, but it's a little bit light on physical options. It's really kind of on Zardex. Looking at special options, though, special options we are quite good. We've got Torn. Yes, I know Torn has 115 attack, but that's not going to be used very often, unless you're running like a Defiant set, maybe. But that's not as reliable. So we've got Torn. Florges has a decent attack stat, but no coverage. Alakazam. Tangrowth is not going to be offensive too often, and then Zard and Coco as well. So this team lacks breakers, in my opinion. You have Zard as a really good breaker. You have Zam as a really good breaker, and Coco is pretty solid. Not as great as it was in Gen 7, but outside that, it's a bit sort of pivoty and slow on that. Looking at our stat spread here, SPDF-wise, it's very heavily reliant on Florges, Tentacruel, and then Mandibuzz to an extent. Gligar can do an okay job. Tangrowth with like SPDF AV set can do an okay job. But yeah, special attackers are really strong against this team. Physically, we're fine. You got Zard, which is much better physically. Tangrowth, Mandibuzz, Gligar, Cobalion, and even Pinsir down here was as a stretch. So yeah, looking at its hazard game, we have Pinsir for rocks, we have Cobalion for rocks, we have Gligar for rocks, and that's it. So we have 4 rockers, one of them's Pinsir, which is not great. Like, this one's probably coming once all season. So you've got like 3 decent rockers in here. Do we have 3? Pinsir, Cobalion, Gligar. There's only 3. So Gligar, Cobalion as your rockers are not the most reliable. Gligar has horrible full move slot syndrome. So Cobalion being your rocker most weeks is not ideal. Yeah, we have... Looking at our removal is fine. Like, we have Coco, Mandibuzz, Gligar, Florges, Torn, Tentacruel. Like we got 6 removal, and then like Zard gets defog, but you're not running it. It's like 7 out of our 11 mons here get defog, which sort of makes me wonder like why Tentacruel is our water type on this team. Yes, it does give us that grounded poison, but most of the time Tentacruel is drafted to be a spinner. And we already have a lot of good removal, so yeah. Tentacruel and Cobalion don't really make much sense. Florges I don't really like. Pinsir feels like it's good value, but it's not bad. This is another team that forgot to draft a ghost type or a normal type. Ghost types I think are really good in draft. Like yes, we do have Mandibuzz, so offensive ghost types aren't as big of an issue. But a normal type is just really nice to have, I find. Especially considering that a lot of the good offensive ghosts have a secondary typing, so Mandibuzz is all the more pressured to take them on. So yeah, looking at this, if this was a Gen 7 team, this would get a really high score. But unfortunately for Frozen, it is Generation 8. And we're going to give him a... What did I give the last team? I gave the last team a 6.5. Yeah, I'm going to give it the same score. 6.5 out of 10. Good, not great, is kind of what I feel here. So we've now got... here we stand with the Dragonstone Dialgas. We got Mew, Celesteela, Nidoking, Weavile, Terrakion, Licky Licky, Moltres, Lantern, Executor, and Mega Altaria. Again, another mon that went way too late. Guys, what are you doing? Round 5 Terrakion. This mon's a beast. Like, it's also super easy to use. You chuck a Scarf on it. You chuck a Band on it. You chuck a Life Orb on it. You run, like, a Resist Berry with Rock Polish on it. There's so many easy sets, and then you just click the stabs, you click Earthquake, you've got Mega Horn, you've got, like, Quick Attack. It's such an easy mon to use and kind of brain dead, but it went round 5. So I don't get that. Yeah, looking at these mons, Licky Licky went a bit early, but I guess the rest of the team is alright. Lantern as your only water is a little bit worrying for me. I'm not a huge fan of this. Alolan Executor is your dragon. Actually, no, we've got Mega Altaria. Alolan Executor is your only grass type. Is going to mean that your Zygarde matchup is really bad here. Like, it's looking at your Zygarde resist is an Alolan Executor, and that's not good. But in other matchups, it's fine because you've got the likes of Moltres, you've got Celesteela to sort of counteract your ground weakness there a little bit. So from a Mon's perspective, these two here are kind of a bit wasted, I feel like. I would have got maybe a real low tier grass, like something like a Roselia or a Leafeon, or just like something that's a decent ground resist, and then got a better water type. But yeah, looking at our speed tiers are alright, not great. Weavile Terrakion has some great speed tiers, but outside that, it's a little bit slow. And we don't have the best option to boost our speed. Like Mew can do it really easy, Mega Altaria can run DD sets. But yeah, that's kind of it. Physical attacking, though, we have it covered. We got Ult that can run mixed. Actually, just looking at these mons, you've got Selly, Mew, Nidoking, and Mega Altaria, which can all run mixed, which makes it really hard to prep for in terms of like how you bring a check to those mons. And then we got like Terrakion that runs physical, Weavile that runs physical. So while we don't really have a dedicated special attacker, there's enough mons that can run special, which make it scary for the opponent, so they'll probably have to prep and bring one, so I think that's fine. Defensive-wise, it's not as strong. Like, we got Selly, we got Mega Altaria, which is a really good defensive mon. We got Moltres and Licky Licky. It's actually better than I thought at first glance. Same story with Spadef, not outstanding, but it's passable. Rockers, we've got Nidoking, Terrakion. Nidoking and Terrakion, that's... Yes, Mew gets rocks. If you ever run rocks on Mew, that's a terrible idea. Yeah, it's not the greatest amount of rockers. Removal, we have Moltres, Mega Altaria. Okay, the hazard game on this team is pretty weak. Looking at our pivots, we have Lantern, Moltres. For a team that drafted a lot of really good mons, it needs more rockers, it needs more momentum, it needs more removal. So it's not great in that aspect. For that, I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. It looks great on paper. It has a lot of good mons, but it just needs more sort of those little things that I find quite important in draft. We have Iraz with his New York Blazikins. We have Ashifu, Latios, Mega Aero, Scizor, Seismitoad, Moongus, Chandelure, Alolan Persian, Diancie, Boltund, and Type Null. First thing I'll notice is we ticked off all the important types. Second thing I see, apart from Boltund, which I don't think is a Pokemon, this mon is useless. We can just delete that. We have all mons that are good and can be brought and will bring something to the team. Even Type Null here. It's a very cheap mon, but it has great defensive stats. It runs a Violite, and it can U-turn and run SD Crush Claw or Ressa, so it can be a bulky pivot. One thing I will say is we're actually going to start with speed tiers once again, which is pretty good because we have Mega Aero, Laddie, Alolan Persian, and Boltund as our fast mons. And then it comes down to Urshifu, which is quickish. But yeah, the speed tiers here check a lot of boxes. In terms of our stat distribution, our special attackers, we have Latios, we have Chandelure. We really only have 2 mons that hit specially, but that's fine. Physical attackers, we have Mega Aero, we have Scizor, we have Urshifu. We're pretty good on that front as well. Defensive-wise, it's, again, not too bad. Scizor, Seismitoad, Moongus, Diancie, they're all pretty good. I quite like this. We're looking at pivots now. We've got Urshifu, we've got Scizor, we've got Alolan Persian, we've got Boltund, and we've got Type Null. 5 is a good number to have, but considering 2 of them are your bottom 2 mons that probably aren't going to come a whole lot. Would have maybe loved 1 more. Yes, you've got the regen. I do like this synergy, but I like this synergy more because of the 2 ground immunities we have up here. Yeah, as a Zygarde, I keep saying but the Zygarde week is going to be a tough week for this team if they play Zygarde because you're relying on Levitators for your ground weakness. Levitators and flying. Had some construction going on. I had to cut out a couple of times to just try and mitigate that noise so it wasn't through the video, making it unwatchable. I have now stopped and come back much later at night when there's no construction, so we should be able to finish off these last 7 teams here. I do remember talking a lot about the nice momentum that this team has. I do think I mentioned pretty much everything I wanted to about Razvan Man. It's just Razvan. I am blind. About his team, about Iraz's team. Personally, I really like it. Yeah, it's not the bulkiest team in the world. I feel like it's going to be sort of breaker versus breaker matchup for these. Urshifu and Mega Aero I really like as a combo. I would have personally liked a stronger water or grass with these because something that this team as a whole struggles to break is bulky grounds. But I think between the offensive power of Urshifu, Laddie, and Chandelure especially, I think we can probably make do with that. Yeah, so looking at this, I'd probably drop... If I was to make this team better, I'd probably drop Boltund, pick up a rocker that... ideally a rocker and an ice. Not even an ice, like a water type. I don't think there's many offensive waters that get rocks. Or maybe yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe even if we didn't go that water route, something like a low tier water that can hit kind of hard. I do love pairing Seismitoad with an offensive water. I think that's like one of the best ways to do it. My favorite pairing ever I've used, just as a bit of a tangent, is Seismitoad Azumarill, because it's a Sap Sipper and a Water Absorb water. It's just, they work really well. So you can maybe look for a low tier water to try and mimic something like that. But yeah, overall, this team I think is really strong. Just because it has been a little bit since I recorded the last one. Let's have a look at Cheesy's team. See what I rated that. So I really liked this team, and I gave it an 8.5. You know what, Iraz? Don't mind me, just some editing on the fly. Iraz has a really good team, and I'm also going to give this an 8.5. I don't think it's without its flaws. But yeah, it's a very strong team. Let's get on to Layton and his experimenting 10.0. Got a team here of Gliscor, Megametti, Blissey, Darm, Roserade, Galvantula, Pyukumuku, Spiritomb, Aromatisse, Hitmontop, Magnezone, and Gyarados. And straight off the bat, I see a few issues with this team. Round 3 Blissey, I genuinely am unsure what was going through your head. That is way too early for a mon like that, and it's just not a very good fit with your first 2 mons. Round 4 Darmanitan, round 6 Galvantula, round 7 Pyukumuku, drafting Magnezone and Aromatisse at all. I really don't like this team. There's also no Dragon on this team. So your Steel is Magnezone, and your Water... you do have 2 water types in... is there a thing? Yeah, Pyukumuku. Well, like for me personally, Pyukumuku, Aromatisse aren't really Pokemon. Like, Aroma more so than not, but I really don't think it's a good one in Gen 8. I just don't see a lot of synergy here, personally. If we look at these speed tiers, to be honest, they're quite tragic. You have Galvantula, which is going to have to come every week, and it's going to have to bring webs every week, because otherwise you're getting outsped by everything. Megametti's your next fastest, and it can't be Scarfed. So Scarf Darm is probably going to have to come almost every week as well, because Scarf Gliscor is not a set. Scarf Gyarados is an option. But yeah, I don't like this team at all. I don't think there's very much synergy. Like, special attackers, we have Magnezone and Roserade, and I guess they kind of work together. Like, Magnezone breaks the grounds, but it doesn't resist the grounds. And looking at the team, your 2 ground resists are Gliscor and Gyarados, which means your Edgequake weaknesses, like, your Edgequake switching is Gliscor. And Gliscor is super pressured to do absolutely everything on this team, I feel like. Yeah, I personally don't really love this, because also, like, we have 2 special attackers out of 12 mons, and we have 3 physical attackers, really, in terms of doing damage. So that's 5 mons out of the 12. So that means there's 7 mons on this team that aren't really going to be hitting too hard. And you got Blissey, you've got Galvantula, Pyukumuku, Spiritomb, Aromatisse, Hitmontop. Like, I think that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So it's like, that's a lot. And then you could probably throw Gliscor in that, because it really loves being that pivot. And it just it feels like too much. Like, Pyukumuku is a very niche bring, like once per season to counter something that can't set up or can't click taunt. And it's going to take you 1 for 1. And I don't think Pyukumuku has a place in draft. Aromatisse is steel bait. And yes, you have 2 ways to really break steals, but there's a lot of mons that don't. And you have Magnezone here. So I guess, like, this kind of synergy almost works, but I just don't love it. Yeah. Before I go on too much about this team, Layton, I'm going to give this... let's have a look at its hazards. Its hazard game is... Its Stealth Rock setters are Gliscor and Blissey. Gliscor hates being forced into rocks because it has so many sets that it can run. You can run U-Turn, Roost, Earthquake, Taunt, Swords Dance, Dual Wing Beat. You can have like Toxic, there's Stealth. There's like about 20 moves that Gliscor wants to run, and forcing rocks onto it every week just hampers that horribly. And then Blissey has to come every week for this team because there's just not enough good mons to bring otherwise. And it has to be the rocker, so it's very predictable. And if you're against a team that has like a magic bounce mon, you're not getting rocks up. You do have spikes from Roserade and webs from Galvantula. They're going to be very necessary, I feel like. Yeah, our removal is defog Gliscor. Same thing with rocks. Gliscor hates being forced to defog. And then it's only Hitmontop. And to have two defoggers, only one of which wants to run it out of 12 mons, that's not very great. I feel bad a bit bashing this team, but it's just, yeah, I personally don't see two mons that synergize. The only synergy I see is Web's Megamedi. And if an opponent under-preps for that, then it can win, because we all know how strong Mega Medicham is. But yeah, honest, just looking at some of the score, I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10. Just because even looking at the pivoting, which is something I've forgotten to do a couple of times, it's Gliscor, Darm, Galvantula, Magnezone. Like, double electric is also a really weird type to double up on when it's your ground resists aren't the greatest, because you have a grass type that doesn't resist ground, and you have a bug type that doesn't resist ground, so it's, yeah. Your dark type also doesn't resist dark. One of your fighting types doesn't resist dark, so your knockoff, or like, your knockoff weakness is really strong here, because like there's not really a mon here that can afford to lose its item. If, in all honesty, it's maybe Hitmontop, but if you're bringing your around 11 mon every week, that's really not great. So I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10, and I'm going to move on before I hurt anyone's feelings too much. We have McGee and his Idaho Igglybuffs. McGee. Now let's take a look. We got Taunty, Lele, Rotom Heat, Keldeo, Umbreon, Jirachi, Mega Beedrill, Diggersby, Druddigon, and Leafeon. Okay, first thing I will see is that we did actually draft a Dark type. We drafted a Normal type. Well done here. Let's take a look at our speed. Actually, well, first of all, Mega B I'm not a huge fan of personally, because I feel like it's a very predictable set. It's going to run U-Turn, it's going to run Poison Jab, it's going to run Drill Run, and it's probably going to run a Fell Stinger or just a fourth move there. Maybe T-Spike. So I'm not a fan of it because I don't like picking mons that have one set, because that makes prep for my opponent very easily. So yeah, it's interesting. But other than that, they're all mons that I like and can appreciate, do well, and draft to. Looking at these speed tiers, the speed tiers are fine. We've got Taunty and Mega Beedrill, very fast, and Keldeo is quite fast and is a great Scarfer. Scarf Jirachi is a great set. Scarf Lele, Scarf Diggersby is another great. Well done on the speed tiers here. Special attackers, we have Lele and Torn, very good. Keldeo is menacing, as always. Physical attackers, Beedrill and Diggersby are probably your main two here, and then like Rachi can be mixed, and Druddigon can hit hard if need be, but it's probably more going to be a bulky pivot. No, Druddigon can hit kind of hard. I like Druddigon. So done very well. Look at our defensive spread. Leafeon, Jirachi, like Umbreon's a really good one. Rotom Heat, like they can all take hits very well. Especially, it's even better because we got Lele in there with a nice 115 Spadef. Rotom, Umbreon's much better Spadef-wise. You got Druddigon, can take physical hits probably more so than special, because you can run like a Rocky Helmet Rough Skin set, which I think is really nice. Looking at our pivoting options, we have Torn, we have Rotom, we have Keldeo, we have Jirachi, we have Beedrill, we have Diggersby. So we have 6 out of our 10 mons that we drafted can all pivot, and that's really good. I really like that, especially when you have mons like... You have a lot of mons that like to click buttons and make it really hard for your opponent to switch into. Torn, clicking Hurricane is one. Keldeo, like Specs Hydro Pump or Secret Sword. Mega Beedrill is one. Like even that U-turn, Diggersby, like these all mons that click buttons and make it really hard for your opponent to switch into. Looking at our hazard game, we got Rockers, Jirachi, Diggersby, and Druddigon. It's not amazing, but it's... Druddigon's probably going to be a rocker most times. Rocks Jirachi is okay. It doesn't love being forced. And actually, I think Diggersby only gets spikes. So, I mean, spikes and rocks are kind of... Rocks are more important, I feel like. But it's a little on the shallow side here. Yeah, I would have personally preferred maybe one more rocker on there. Even if it was just a low tier, like rock type. Something like a Regirock or something, just reliable. It can come in and get rocks up every week. Looking at our removal, we've got Torn. Oh, please don't tell me Torn's your only removal. Yeah, I think Torn is the only removal in this team. Oh, Torn and Rotom, sorry. That's not good. That's really going to let you down, because you're a little bit rock weak in Torn, Rotom, B. And then, like, if you get Spike stacked or something like that, it's not great. You do have a Grounded Poison and Beedrill, so T-Spikes isn't going to be as much of an issue. But getting Beedrill in when it's got 40 defense, 80 speed F, 65, like these defensive stats, it's not going to be as easy. So yeah, it's interesting. I do like the synergies here. I think Rotom and Torn both don't like rock type attacks. Then you got Keldeo and Jirachi. Keldeo's not the best rock resist, but it can come in and offensively pressure rock types. Jirachi is a much better resist. Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind this. You've got probably a bit No, actually, I don't mind this team at all. So what I'm going to go is I'm going to give McGee probably an 8 out of 10 for this team. Just because the hazard game isn't quite as strong, but I do quite like it, and I think it's actually one of the better Mega B teams I've seen in a while. Just because you have so much pivoting to be able to sort of... You can click U-turn or flip turn or volt switch quite a few turns and just try to really build up that momentum to get your opponent on the back foot to then start clicking some buttons with your mons here. And I think that's going to be the best strategy for McGee. So we now have Puke. I don't know. You're going to be Puke. P-U-K-J-E. And he has a team of Pult, Heatran, Slowbro, Togekiss, Zarude, Mega Kangaskhan, Silvally, Garbodor, Heracross, Jolteon, Marshtomp, Dewpider. So what I see is I am going to look at this team of 10 mons, and you've got 2 1-pointers here. Marshtomp, like, it's not a bad Eviolite mon. If you really need a rocker and you can't afford to run it and you've got a 6th slot open, you can just run Marshtomp with rocks and sort of like rocks. I'm not sure. I don't know if Marshtomp got Flip Turn. I know that Swampert did. I'm not sure. If it did, that makes that mon like a really good 1-point pickup in my opinion. Just to get the reliable rocks, to get that Flip Turn. If not, just like rocks, clicking Scald, coming in as like a pivot. It's alright. Dewpider is there for webs. As I said, if you're going to pick up a 1-point mon, pick up like a 1-point Weber or a 1-point like T-Spiker or something that's gonna do something. But looking at it, we've got Pult Heatran. Round 2 Tran is... personally, I don't think it's... Like, I'm not a huge fan of round 2 Tran, but I'm going to assume that this was the wheel, and so like Heatran Slowbro round 2 and 3 wheel is pretty solid. So yeah, there's not really any mons other than maybe like Heracross Jolteon that I don't like this gen. Jolteon because it struggles to hit ground types. Like, it has Hyper Voice, but Jolteon, without really running specs, doesn't hit super hard. So yeah, it's not bad. Let's look at our speed tiers, shall we? I can see already why Jolteon was drafted, because we have Dragapult, we have Zarude, and then we have Slow. So Jolteon was really needed. Personally, I would have maybe looked at using the points from these 3 mons and just getting something like even like a Tauros, just to something that's fast and can click buttons against almost every mon. It doesn't have to be this 130 speed tier. Like you can something. What other things could be? It could look like maybe a Sneasel. Yeah, a few mons like that. Look at our special attacking split. We have Togekiss and Heatran are going to be the main special breakers, with like Dragapult being able to be mixed. And physically, we have Heracross, we have Mega Kang, we have Zarude, and then again, Dragapult can be mixed. So it's a decent mix. This team's a little bit bulkier. We got Slowbro, Tran, Zarude, Mega Kang, Silvally. It's quite a thick team. Emphasis on the thick with 2 C's there. Looking at our pivoting options, we'll start with that. We've got Dragapult, we have Zarude, we got Silvally, and we got Jolteon. So in terms of being able to, that's not too bad, because this team doesn't really have. It's not built around getting one mon in over and over again, like say a Mega Heracross or a Melmetal or those really oppressive mons that struggle to get themselves in, like a Mega Mawile. Yeah, so it's not really Mega Metacham's another one. It's not really built around those, so it's not too bad. Looking at our rockers here, we have Heatran, we have Marshtomp. Guys, Elementary. Do me a favor and look at your hazard options before we get down to round 10, please. Please and thank you. So 2 rock. Let's just be blunt here. That's not enough. It's not enough at all. You're going to have to be running Roxtran almost every week, which Heatran doesn't mind it, but that means you're going to be more. You're going to miss out on running sets like Scarftran, Spextran, like just an offensive one, a Flame Charge Heatran I've seen do it. You miss out on taking advantage of this 130 special attack, I feel like, if you're forced to run rocks every week. Our removal is Togekiss, it is Silvally, and that is it. Yeah, I will say, before I go on any further, Garbodor and Heracross both do get spikes, so that's mitigates it a little bit, but I don't think spikes are as important as they were in as valuable as they were in Gen 7, so I'm not as inclined to include them. So it's yeah, it's not the strongest from my opinion. But yeah, the hazard game really lets this team down, and I think that combined with sort of having just I'm trying to figure out how to put it. I do like Silvally on this team, that's one thing I will mention. And with this team, you can actually afford to run offensive Silvally more often than not. Now that it has that 120 attack, base power multi-attack, I think that could be good. But just looking at this team, I see a lot of reliance on Dragapult to kill everything. Because Dragapult and then Mega Kang to kill everything. Because if we're looking at it, regular Heracross isn't the most reliable breaker. Neither is Heatran when it's forced to run rocks every week. So they're real, and Togekiss as well, not the most reliable. And so looking outside of that, we just don't have the attack stat to be able to, the attack or the special attack stats to be able to break a lot with this team. So I'm actually going to give this team, I was thinking a 7, but I'm actually going to downgrade that to a, I'm actually going to downgrade it to a, let's go look at, so I gave Azarine a 6.5, and I think this team is better than Pukes. There we go. So I'm actually going to give this a 6 out of 10. I was looking at a 7, but that hazard game is just too weak for me to give it one. So we have Rakia. As I said, I suck at names, and we have the Rakia's Fight Club. That's a cursed image right there. I I need to find something to cover that. So we have Megalade, Corviknight, Finny, Arcanine, Decidueye, Nihilego, Vikavolt, Mamoswine, Sneasel, Kangaskhan, and Shelgon. So that's a really strong team. Right off the bat, I'm a huge fan of Vikavolt. Megalade, Corviknight's really strong. Tapu Fini, Arcanine. I even like the value of Shelgon because it's an Eviolite user and it's a dragon, which is a really good defensive type. The double ice is a bit strange, and having Sneasel as your dark is probably like something that I'd look at changing. Let's look at the speed tiers before we dive any further. Straight off the bat, I see it's Sneasel and Lade with Nihilego as sort of your speed, and I'm not really a fan of it. I can see why Sneasel was drafted now because you really needed this like 115. But yeah, this team's going to find itself being outsped. Outsped a lot, which is probably not the best thing. If I'm honest, I would have liked this Sneasel. I would have probably liked one more fast mon, and the fact that there's double ice here maybe means that you could drop Sneasel for a different dark type, but then you want that dark type to be fast. So that's a harder one for me. Let's look at our stat distribution. Our special attackers are Vikavolt and Nihilego. That's not bad, but it's not amazing either because Vikavolt loves running a defensive set with like slow volt switches. Nihi's a great special breaker. But yeah, looking at our physical breaking capability, we have Megalade, we have Arcanine, we have Decidueye, we have Mamoswine, and then Sneasel's a pretty decent physical attacker as well. So we're much more adept on the physical side than we are the special side, which could be taken advantage of a little bit. Looking at our defensive stats, we have Finny and Corviknight with, dare I say, Shelgon, but more like looking at Arcanine and Decidueye in there as well, Vikavolt. So really nice here. Then we got Spadef again. We got Megalade actually has pretty decent Spadef stat. Corviknight can run Spadef quite well. Finny's very bulky. Decidueye, Nihilego. So our defensive breakdown our stat distribution is quite good. Looking at our rockers, our stealth rockers are Nihilego, Mamoswine, and Nihilego and Mamoswine. Guys, I think my next video needs to be Dear Elementary. This is how you draft a reasonable hazard deck game. But yeah, so looking at this, it's not very strong. Mamoswine and Vikavolt, they can run rocks in a pinch, but they don't love doing it. Mamoswine can do it more than probably Nihilego, but Nihi with that like defense stat 47 probably doesn't love it as much. Our removal is Corviknight, Finny, Decidueye, Vikavolt. So we have 4 solid removers. I will say that in terms of hazards, we have Nihi with T-Spikes, and then we have Vikavolt with Webs. So that's pretty solid. Yeah, the lacking of the hazard game and a lacking of a speed tier has really downgraded this team. From my initial opinion, I really thought it was quite a strong team, but now Rakia is going to get... I think, personally... Well, let's look at momentum. That's one thing I keep forgetting to do. We've got Corviknight, we've got Arcanine with Teleport, Decidueye, Vikavolt. Would have loved some more, considering you have Megalade, you have Mamoswine, you have Nihilego. You've got these mons that really love coming in multiple times throughout a game. I think this is because of the synergy that I like with this top. Really, because of just the like this top 8 is really good. I'm actually going to give this. I gave McGee an 8. And yeah, I'm going to give it the same score as that. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just because I love the synergy, I don't love the hazard game of these top bonds here. And then I think this is the last team that we have to do. No, we got one more after this. We've got Sengoku. And we have the Hampton King hot dogs. That's a cursed logo. Please remove that forever. I don't need to see that. We have the round one Galarian Wheezing meme. I will move on from that very quickly. We have Aegislash, Mega Chomp, Greninja, Thundurus, Buzzwole, Necrozma, Chansey, Quilladin, Colossal, and Torchic. So Torchic was a 1-point meme, I assume. This is what, round 7 Necrozma? That's a steal. That's so good in terms of value. I don't know how that happened. There's a lot of mons here that like were going a lot later than they should be, and then Blissey went a lot earlier than it should have. Double fire. Oh well, that's the double fire. So other than that, we've actually drafted one of every type except ice, which I think is really nice. No pun intended. In terms of the individual mons, I really like them. I don't mind Chansey. Normally, I'm not a huge Chansey fan, but on an offensive team like this, where you got Gren, Thundy, Buzzwole, Mega Chomp, you got an Aegislash, I think Chansey can work, and it goes alright. If we look at our speed tiers here, we have Gren and we've got Thundy, and then it drops off to like pre-Mega Chomp is like base 102. But then it really drops off. You got like Buzzwole and Necro at 79, into the 60s. It's passable speed control. And I only say that because Necro can boost its speed pretty easily, and Scarf Buzzwole is a good set. But outside that, it's a little bit weak. Looking at our SpDef, yes, that says 150 still. The doc hasn't been updated from last gen. Our SpDef stats are pretty decent, like mainly because we can look at this HP. Here, like we got a lot of mons with a lot of HP. Like Chansey is one of the best SpDef walls in the game, and if we have a way, and then we have Galarian Wheezing, which resists fighting 4 times. We don't have the great, like we have Buzzwole. It's a great knock resist. So yeah, it's like we've covered Chansey's weaknesses very well, and that's why we are quite physical. If you looks at the rest of the team, which I think works phenomenally. Like got Buzzwole, you got Mega Garchomp, Aegislash, Galarian Wheezing. Like even Colossal Quilladin, 6195 when you whack an Eviolite on is really strong. Yeah, so if we look at our hazard game, we got Mega Chomp, we've got Necrozma, we got Chansey, and we got Colossal for Stealth Rocks. Necrozma doesn't love running it, but the other 3 are more than happy to, and you're going to be bringing at least one of them to each game, so that's a fine Stealth Rocking option. We do have Greninja and Galarian Wheezing that both get access to T-Spikes, and then Gren and Quilladin also both get access to Spikes. So this is how you draft a good hazard game. Watch me look at the removal and there'd be like nothing now. So removal, we have Galarian Wheezing, we have Thundurus, we have Colossal. So that's... I would have loved one more, like maybe use this 1 point, or maybe like, I don't know, use these 2 to swap for maybe a grass type that gets removal. I can't think of any off the top of my head, like other than Delmise, or... But you don't have enough points for that. I don't know. I'd love to somehow fit another remover in here, but that's not really possible. But yeah, looking at our pivoting options, we've got Gren, we've got Thundy, and that's it. That's probably where this team gets let down the most. So yeah, I like the team, but obviously taking round 1 Galarian Wheezing is has hampered your ability to get some top tier mons, which, yeah, it's a bit hard. So I'm actually, let's look at Rakia's team. I'm actually going to give this team, I'm going to give it a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's just not as good as the last one, just because the caliber of mons isn't the greatest. Our removal and our pivoting ability really isn't the strongest. But now we have Sweetak as our last option, and the Tampa Bay Mantines. And we have round 1 Scolipede, which, again, another meme. Very interesting one. Victini, round 3 Mega Aggron was strange. You got Mian Chao Raikou, although Mega Aggron apparently got 5 deaths in the first game against Rakia, so that's interesting. I got Mian Chao Raikou, Vaporeon, Xatu, Goodra, Frostlass, and Slurpuff. An interesting team, to say the least. I think we've taken Mega Aggron way too early. I think Xatu and Slurpuff aren't great mons at all this gen. But other than that, it's not a bad team at first glance. Let's dive a bit deeper and look at our speed tiers. We have Scolipede, we have Raikou, Mienshao, and Frostless. So we have this is good speed tiers as far as I'm concerned, because we have Scarf Teeny's great, Scarf Mienshao's a fantastic set. Even Scarf Goodra. To be honest, so you have plenty of options for Scarfers, you have plenty of fast mons. That's a great start. Looking at special attack, we have Raikou and Goodra. Goodra and Victini go mixed most of the time, and have the ability to go mixed. So it's really Raikou as our special breaker, which I'm not a huge fan of. Yes, Goodra will be more special and physical most of the time, but it's... yeah. Looking at physical breakers, though, we have much better. Scolipede and Victini. Scolipede because it can run Adamant more often than not, considering its speed boost, so that's attack stat is in practice a little bit higher than base 100. Victini because it gets V-Create. Mega Aggron's really strong. Crook and Mienshao are really good. Looking at our defense, we obviously have Mega Aggron, then you got Vaporeon. I love these defensive spreads. In terms of hazards, we have Mega Aggron, Crook for rocks. A little bit short, but Mega Aggron loves running rocks. It can run rocks most of the time, unless it's on a Rest Talk set or some sort of setup. But yeah, between those two, you'll be able to set rocks most weeks, but it is a little bit light. It is made up for, however, in the fact that we do get Scolipede and Frostlass both run spikes. So yeah, that's an option there in terms of hazards. In removal is our next one. We have... oh dear. We have only Xatu as a remover. So it was looking so promising, but alas. Yeah, that's just not great. You can probably spike stack against this team pretty comfortably most weeks. It does have a spin blocker and Frostless. That's the only thing that stops spike stack. Is you can stack back. Yeah, that's not great. Looking at our pivoting options, we have Teeny, Mienshao, Raikou, Vaporeon. That's pretty decent. That's neither here nor... it's pretty good, considering that the rest of the mons are kind of bulky. Yeah, honestly, I don't have a lot to say about this team, because it's round 1 Scolipede. It's a bit of a meme. I'm going to give it a... I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Actually, that's going to be downgraded to a 6 just because there's one remover. And it's got a... Actually, let's take a look. I gave Puke's team a 6 out of 10, and that was this one. Yeah, no, I prefer this team, so I'm going to give Sweetak a 5.5 out of 10. Yeah, so there are my power rankings, and that's going to be the end of Elementary this season. I'm just going to double check that I have 16 teams. 3, 6, 12, 15, 16. Yeah, so we have 16 teams. I do apologize that this PR was a little bit jumpy, just with the technical issues I had, and then there being construction noise. Yes, do apologize. If your teams was one of the ones that was affected by me stopping halfway through and I didn't go through something that you wanted, feel free to message me and ask for anything, or ping me and just question, be like, hey, you said I only have one rocker, but I actually have Uxie, Mesprit, Azelf, and 6 other ground types that learn rocks. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching. I will post a doc with all the teams ranked afterwards. But yeah, if you've enjoyed and would like to see me do anything else this season, feel free to let me know. I have enjoyed making these power rankings, and I'm in lockdown for the foreseeable future, so I will have plenty of time on my hands. But yeah, I will stop rambling. That has been all from me, and I will see you all next time.